Okay, it's getting ready to start. It's funny because we're just using like our personal computers for work, which is like kind of ridiculous. But
Yeah.
even at work, sometimes
Okay, it's getting ready to.
there we go. Perfect. Even at work, sometimes we'll like I'll be like, I can't use my computer, I can't watch something on lunch, or I can't do something, and people are like, "You're a therapist. It doesn't matter what you look up. You can just say it was research, like about." And I was like, no, I can't do that. And they're like, no, you literally can look.
You literally can.
Yeah.
You're like, it's just market research.
They're like, yeah, you just say like a client mentioned something, you were thinking about it. I don't know about that. So now I'm like happy that I'm on my work computer, but then it's always funny whenever we're on Zoom calls and we have to share a screen and like they see my browser tabs and it's like YouTube, it's nothing bad. It's always just like knitting vlog,
Yeah.
else, knitting pattern. They're like, Brie. I'm like,
Oh, that's the same with me. So I just like have two that are like separate. So I'm like, oh, I'll only show this screen.
that's what I
They'll
should
never
do.
know.
That's what I should do. You know. Okay. We are live.
Exciting.
I know.
Hello.
I know, right? Welcome. Every time I'm like, oh, this is the time it's going to be not nerve wracking and super exciting. And then I'm always like, nope, I'm still nervous.
Oh no, it doesn't get easier, I promise. Like I wish it did, but it doesn't.
No, I don't think it does. Two people are here. I don't know who's here. It might just be us. Does it count us?
Maybe it's just me.
We can give another minute. And then, oh, I know what I want to do. I want to post it. And then we can get started. I know it's like dinner time on East Coast, so people maybe are just
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Now I can hear it too.
right.
Maybe that's me. I know. I like when I saw your message and it was like 5:15, I was like, "Oh no, I'm working."
I'm glad you saw that because okay.
It's also really warm in my room. I'm not accustomed to it. Calgary's like started to actually get cold now. I'm not ready.
What is like cold? Are
Cold
you
is,
cold?
yeah, Calgary's like cold. Like our average in the winter is like -10 to -15.
That's Celsius, so
That's Celsius. So like 25
okay.
Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that's cold. It's like 40 here, and I'm like, I'm freezing.
No, it's chilly.
I know. It's funny because when I was in Texas, it was 80 something, like almost year round. And so it was cold in the January, a little into February, like cold by like 30s.
Yeah.
And immediately by March, it was like back up to 90s. And so I was not used to the cold. And when I moved back to PA, I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. It was August. It was like 90 degrees. And then it was like 60. And I was like, what did I do?
This is why I swear that most of us knit. Like I think every single knitter is a liar by saying that they want to like their favorite season is fall. I'm like, that is such garbage. All of us hate cold, and that's why we knit.
100%. 100%.
Like, you're just lying. The reason why you like fall is because you get to finally wear your sweaters that you've been working on for like the whole entire year. Like, there's no other reason for fall that you're like, I love it.
Only reason I like fall. And like I wear my sweaters and people don't give me crap about wearing my sweaters. That's the only reason, like singular reason. But it's 7:20, so I say we get started. There are a few people on here watching now. So hello.
Say hello.
I know. Who are you?
Who are you?
Do we know you? Can we know you if we don't?
Come hang out.
But let's get started. Let's let these people say hi to us. And for the folks who are watching later, are probably waiting for us to jump into it. I'm super excited, obviously, to be here tonight with a friend of mine again. This is the Self-Care Collaborative Week. I think. I said it was week 5, so if it's not, I'm
I think
sorry.
it's week 5.
Okay, I think so too. Time's not real.
Time's fleeting.
Yeah. So I think it's week 5. Hello, Birdie J. I think it's week 5 of the Self-Care Collaborative. Thank you so much for joining me. If this is your first time, for the first time, and if you're coming back, thanks for coming back. If you're watching later, thanks for taking the time to watch later. And if you're joining live, like we said, hit up that chat, say hi. Do you have your comments up also?
Yeah, I have my comments up.
Cool. So we both have the comments up. So definitely feel free to say hello, ask a question, things over there. I'll keep my eye on that. And why don't we jump right into it? And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the people? Tell the people who we have tonight.
Who I am. Hi, my name is Chantal. I am the maker and like biz owner and knitwear designer behind Knitatude. Knitatude it like slowly morphed as this small little company, and now it's not my full-time job, but I just like design on the side, and it's just something that kind of came out of nowhere, and I try and just do designs that I like and hope other people like them.
It's so funny when you say like, oh, my little business, because I'm like, you do not have a little business, but I always like, also, this is your second job. Like, that's crazy.
It's my side hustle, even though it feels like a full-time job anyways. It's probably the same hours as a full-time job.
I'm sure it is. Hello, Lace. Hi.
Ooh.
So tell the people, if they don't know you, if they're not following you already, they might not know this. And I honestly don't know if I know this, because I feel like I found you when I was living in Texas, actually. I don't know if you remember how we met. Probably not. But I tested one of your patterns. I tested
Which one did you test?
with the really big cowl.
Oh, the Cozy Celtic.
The Cozy Celtic.
Joy.
And I was in Texas. And so you've always, to me, been like this big ass designer who's like super awesome and famous. But tell us about your journey into knitting, how you started making, how you started creating, and what that looked like.
Yeah. So I feel like when everyone has their like grandiose story about how they learned how to knit, it's always like really sweet and very wonderful. And like mine is just like very selfish and short. Like I really, it was in 2000, I think 12, and I really wanted to get a circle scarf for Christmas, because like I was like, Pinterest was in its heyday. Like every girl had like super long blonde hair that I was just like, the beautiful cowls. And I was like, God damn it, I just want to be a basic bitch. And I really wanted one for Christmas. And I asked for one, and it didn't happen. Like I didn't get one from like, I asked my like in-laws, like everything, I didn't get one. So I was kind of peeved. So I just was like, well, you know what? If I'm already on Pinterest anyways, I'm just going to start looking at like how to be able to knit. And I picked up, maybe the grandmother part comes in like, I found some like rickety old needles in like downstairs, and they're 5mm, and they were so small. And I just was like, I'm just going to learn how to make my own circle scarf. I had no idea how to knit. Like no idea. I went on YouTube. There was a girl also named Chantal, like a cute little Asian lady. And it was just like, oh my God, it was like perfect. And she taught me how to do a ribbed scarf, but I just like got to the point that I was like, knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one. I didn't know which one I had done. I literally had Cheerios. Like I would bring one Cheerio over to view it, and then I would eat a Cheerio, and then I would forget what I was doing. And that's kind of like how I started knitting. And then I like started making myself circle scarves. I only knew, I literally started my business before I learned how to purl, because I was just like, no, I'm never going to do it again. I'm only going to knit. I only know how to do a knit stitch. I did a knit stitch for a whole entire year. I had,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I had girlfriends like send me messages being like, oh, that's a really cute scarf. And I was like, thanks, I'll make one for you if you pay me. And they were like, cool. So I legit like opened up an Etsy shop. I had no idea how to purl. So whenever anyone goes like, how do I start my shop? I don't know where to go. And I'm like, you don't even need to know how to purl to be able to start a shop. And then all of a sudden I had a really wonderful, I used to be in show choir, and my like show choir is like full of like 650 people. It goes from like like 3-year-olds to like 70-year-olds. So my group was super supportive, and I started making money, and I was like, oh my God, maybe I can just like do this like just on the side. And 2016, I was at the point that I think I was doing like 10 markets a season, and I was like, I'm dying. And I was so sad that I had never made something for myself. So I was like, I'm going to take a weekend and I'm going to make myself something, and I'm going to write down my steps while I do it. And I made the bum hugger, which is my first ever pattern.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, and then it was just like, oh, and I think it was also like the idea that when I made my first like sale on patterns versus like an Etsy sale on like a physical knit item, it was just like that sudden relief of being like, I don't have to do anything. Like, they have the PDF, I don't have to do anything, it's totally fine. And I just found that it was a way more lucrative way of making money. And then I just got to be able to design at the same time. And then I started reaching out to companies, and I was like, hey, can I have your yarn? I have some followers, I'll share your yarn. And yeah, and now I have a contract with Lion Brand. So I don't know, it's kind of cool. It's like, it started so small. I remember my husband at the time, he was like, we have so much yarn around here. He's like, this is getting ridiculous. This is taking up too much of your time. And now it's like come to this full-fledged thing where I'm like, he's now able to go to school and not have to worry about working, which doesn't help with COVID anyways. But now it's like a whole new biz by itself.
That is so crazy. I didn't know any of that. I don't know how much of that other people know, but I literally didn't know any of that.
Really? I guess I never talk about it.
No, or at least not.
Sorry, that's Kurt.
Never, ever have to be sorry for dogs in my presence, ever. And if anyone watching this video has a problem with Kurt, then like,
bring it on.
Yeah, I
take you out.
Kurt is welcome here. So, that's so funny. And like also is so awesome. Hi, Karen. Karen's here. She says, hi.
Karen.
That like you had the guts.
Sorry, I'm the one who's like swearing on your own live, and I'm like, I probably should have asked if I should swear.
I also curse a lot. Everyone knows me that I curse a lot, but like there's something about, I don't know, balls feels like a word in my house. Like in my house, it's like the big joke. We always joke about balls, but like I feel like, is YouTube gonna like shut me down if I
No, and as a person whose last name was Dix as my maiden name, I'm totally fine with balls.
Okay. Good.
You like everyone was like, are you gonna keep your name? I was like, fuck no. Like, no thank you. They're like, you could hyphenate. So my last name right now is right now. My last name is Miyagishima. And they were like, you could hyphenate. And I was like, Miyagi Dix? No, thank you.
No, Dix will just stay a part of my past. And that's all. But that's so cool that you just had like the balls to be like, and I'm wondering if it's like one of those things, like sometimes when you don't know how much you don't know, it's like, oh yeah, I can just, when you start knitting, you're like, brioche is not bad, I'll just try it. But like, once you know, like, oh, that's a hard thing, like you shouldn't do that, then it's like,
you're like, oh God.
I won't try it because that sounds really hard. So that's cool that you just like were able to jump right into it and like design the bum hugger as your.
I know. The bum hugger was pretty funny because I was like, I don't know what to like name this. And I was talking to Nicole from Woolfield Studio. So she's my best friend. She used to have a jewelry line even before she had Woolfield Studio. So we've known each other because we started the market scene really similar to each other, like to the point that like market vendors would know to sit both of us in like the same booths because we would just like end up taking over each other's spaces anyways. But I sent her a message and I was like, I don't know what to do. It like kind of cups your ass. I don't know how to like kind of cups your butt. And she was like, well, don't call it a bum cupper. Like it's not appropriate. So bum hugger was a slight bit easier.
That's so funny. And that's awesome. And that you're able to support like yourselves financially, but also that you're able to do something that you really enjoy in a way that was really cool.
And everyone always goes, what's the inspiration behind your designs? And I'm like, it's something that I wanted in my closet. So I'm like, I wanted it, so I made it. And then I figured I might as well make more sizes.
Yeah. That like makes the most sense to me. It would be hard for me to understand why anyone designs in a way other than that. Like, isn't that just how it works? You're like, oh man, I wish I had something that looked like this. And then you're like, oh wait, I can just make it.
I'm curious to see that about men who design, because I'm like, I don't think there's that many men who will design for men that they'll design for women. And I'm like, how do you do that?
That's interesting. Maybe I do have some guys on here later on. Hopefully I'll remember to ask about that and they can share their wisdom. And so hearing that story also makes me think about like, and Matt, I'm making an assumption here, just knowing you a little bit, but I'm curious how your self-care journey might map on to that journey that you had doing all those markets and now like doing this full time. So I'm curious to tell us a little bit what self-care has looked like for you across time, and maybe a place to start is just thinking about like, what does self-care mean to you? Like, where did you learn about self-care?
I think that I always had this idea that self-care was gonna like, you were like, it's not just bubble baths. And I feel like that's what everyone is along the lines of. I like my biggest struggle points for myself is I do go, 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 and I don't like stopping. And I think that's, maybe this is like delving into like past stuff as well. Maybe I blame my mother. My mom is just like, she has always been that person that is constantly driving. She is a move, like she is constantly moving. She's always moving forward. And I think one of the biggest things that, yeah, you're probably right. When I came to my markets was just like, I couldn't keep up and I needed to find a way to be able to pivot. So when I think of it, I always like think of, this is probably not always healthy, but I think in business, instead of like Chantal, I always think of like Knitatude got bottlenecked. And I'm like, no, Chantal got bottlenecked and she needed to find a different way to be able to make things change. My biggest fight with self-care is definitely, or just like with my own self, is just telling myself to stop. I struggle with that. And I think a lot of people do. I think people who have small businesses have a very hard, like it's not easy to be able to turn off. And one of the things that I've been really trying to do when I think of self-care is, this is something that my husband ended up teaching me. And it does have to do with my challenge after, which is, I have a tendency to obsess about things. Like if something on social media happens, maybe I get a bad review or whatever it is, I have a tendency to obsess about it. And what I've been trying my best to be able to do is imagine that every single time that I walk into, like, example, the Instagram app, or I walk into a certain thing, I'm walking into a door. So I open that door, I let myself go into that space. And when I am done with that space, I close that door and I try and leave it. I'm not very good at it. I will not lie, but that's what I'm like trying. I'm trying to like compartmentalize, if that's the word to say it. And I think also one of the biggest things that I've noticed for my own self-care is that it's in a way using my own mode of not wanting to stop to still be able to do something for myself. So I was always active as a kid, and then I learned how to knit, and then I kind of just sat down. Which is great. And you would think that it would be slowing yourself down, but that's not how my body works. So one of the things that I like to do is, I know it sounds like really cliche, but yoga, because it's still constantly moving my body, but at the same time, letting my like brain stop, which is not exactly the easiest thing to do when you're constantly locomotoring. But like exercise and like actually doing something, that's been a huge thing for me when it comes to self-care. I don't even know, what does self-care mean to you?
To me?
Yeah.
That's cheating. You can't ask me that.
I'm curious. Oh my God, dude, I'm so hot. I'm gonna walk off screen. I'm going to get another fucking shirt because I'm boiling. I promise not to be on screen.
Would that get my video shut down? Because if not, it might really pick up my subscribers.
Get yours shut down.
I'm sure everyone watching right now would have loved that. And it's interesting. What does self-care mean to me? I think that's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's cool hearing. I mean, not cool because, but I'm like, oh, I had the same sort of experience like with my mom growing up. Like we still to this day laugh that I don't know how my mom lives. Like I say that jokingly, but like she literally goes to bed at like 3 and wakes up at like 5 or 6. Like not because she's a morning person, just like has stuff to do. She makes stuff to do all the time. Like all the time. And we'll be like, oh, like let's sit down. We're all watching Schitt's Creek. And like we're all in different seasons, but like when I was home for the weekend, we were like, oh, let's sit down and watch. And she'll like sit down literally 2 seconds and be like, oh, look, that screw's loose. And then like she's like building a chest.
Like, what are you doing? Calm down.
Dude, literally sit down. And if she does sit down, it's like the big joke. She like sleeping in 2 seconds. So I think I always just learned that like, not even that it was like the right thing to do. It was just like the thing that you did was like to go. And I think I do it now a lot too, similar to you probably, that I'm like, I have all these orders on my Etsy. I can space them out. Or if I do them all in the next
now,
then like maybe tomorrow I'll have a break. But then I get more orders and I never actually get the break, but I'm like just always used to going. And so I think I always envisioned self-care as like something people enjoyed doing and was like really relaxing and I don't know, like face masks and that kind of bubble bath, like that kind of.
I know. It's always that idea that it's going to be slow.
Yeah.
You're like
and enjoyable. And I remember being in grad school and it was like tough, obviously being in grad school. And I was like, I'm going to take a bath. And I sat there and I was like, this is disgusting. I'm sitting in my own dirt water. This is terrible. I was like, okay, maybe I'll read a book. And then I was like, okay, this is terrible. I'm getting out.
Yeah.
And I remember like going to my therapist and talking to my therapist. And she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm trying to take care of myself. And she was like, by taking a bubble bath, like a bath, you think that's going to take care of yourself? And then I was like, oh, and then like 3 years of therapy later. And I was like, oh, I think actually taking care of myself probably means like dealing with hard shit and like working and breaking really difficult patterns and like having hard conversations with people. And so I think my idea of self-care is sometimes very different from others.
Yeah, that's like a point. Because I'm in the same boat. Like I hate baths. And I think it's because as soon as I get into a bath, I'm like, I could be doing so many other things right now. What is you like you get in, you're like, it's too hot. And then you're like, now it's too cold. You're like, what am I doing in here? Which is funny enough because my husband loves baths. And maybe that's a good point that you're talking about, like your self-care is essentially like having those hard conversations and really like, I think that's something that has really helped me as well. Like my husband and I, we make dinner. I watch him make dinner. I just like help. I'm not fucking domestic. Like he got the short end of the stick when he got me as a wife. I'm not gonna lie. But like I think one of the reasons why we work so well as a pair is because we are constantly challenging each other, and especially with this year in like 2020, we're talking about so my husband is so my last name is Japanese, but he's actually adopted. So he's half Vietnamese and half Caucasian. So we've been having a lot of really interesting conversations about racism. And I think it like really kicked up this year, especially since George Floyd. And I think when it comes to self-care, I think we always like having those conversations with each other and like really challenging each other on the status quo and what we think people are doing and what we think we are doing and what we could end up doing better. I don't know, man. I really have to thank my husband because I really think he's made me a much kinder and much more wonderful person. When I first met him, I was 18. I met him in like a really hard time. So my Todd and I started dating January 3rd, 2009, and my dad passed away January 30th. 27th, 2009. Okay. So Todd and I were like fresh into our relationship. My dad had cancer at the time. And I think like that was the first thing that kind of immediately started us. And even when I think about my dad, I think when it comes to self-care, I'm a bottler, if that makes sense. Like I bottle shit up and then I explode. And then I bottle shit up and then I explode. So Todd's been really, really helpful in just like trying to ease those emotions out of me before that big, massive blow up happens. And I think I've just learned that a bunch from him. And then also yoga to like make me just like do something.
It's so cool that I love it. It's also funny when I don't know that I ever actually told you this, but I love when you talk about you and Todd because I'm like, there's so many similarities to me and Michael, especially now that Michael and I are living together. And like Michael he's finishing school and he had to quit his job to work with the basketball team. And so he's doing a lot more of the domestic stuff. And then I have work and then Little Wolf Knits. And so I don't know. And he's like, slow down.
And you're like, why?
And it's funny that
so much to do.
Literally today, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, he was like making coffee. And I was like, chop, we have so much to do today. And he was like what? And I like rattled all these things off. I was like, do you want me to keep going? He was like, sure. He's like, okay, we'll get it done. Calm down. I was like, not like in the calm down that annoys you. He's like, it'll be fine. And I was like,
I guess it will be.
Like, no, it won't. Like, get the thing done. And so it's funny too that, again, that goes back to like, it doesn't always feel good to be challenged like that. And to like, have someone for him to be like, just sit down. We can watch an episode of TV. And I'm like, no, I can't. But I think I don't know. I think that's what self-care is, right? Like pushing yourself to do things that don't feel comfortable, like pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. I'm always like, if it feels not good, it's probably where I should be headed. Like it's probably where I need to turn and let go. And it's hard to do that without.
I think it also like probably stops anxiety in the long run. Cause like my thing is like the reason why I don't do things is because, or like why I push against things is because I'm an absolute procrastinator. So I think it's because I have the anxiety of doing that thing or like not knowing, not that like not doing the thing, it's like not knowing how to do the thing and making myself feel like I either look stupid, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm insecure about whatever that is. And then all of a sudden the task takes you like 15 minutes and it's super fast. And then all of a sudden it's like the same idea of like small business owner trying to do taxes for the first time. Like I put off taxes for like 3 years. And I was like CRA, I am so sorry. But then I remember like going to a course and it was like, oh, this is what you do. And I went to that course twice. I went to one in like 1 year. And then I came back the next year and I was like, I left that first one being like, oh my God, I'm going to know exactly what to do. And then I forgot about it as soon as I left. And then that anxiety of the whole entire year. And then I came back to the same girl and she did the whole entire same course. And then I cried in the back of the corner because she was like, did you not do this last year? And I was like, no, I got nervous. So I finally had to do like 3 things of taxes in 1 year, which maybe in hindsight that was smart because I really know how to do my taxes now. And it's like one of my most enjoyable things. I'm like, ooh, it's tax time. Like, I'm like, let's find out how much money you made. Like, and I think it's also like the self-care to like push yourself to doing the uncomfortable things because you never know if the thing in the long run is going to make you like really happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you're so right that like the longer we don't do something, the bigger and scarier it becomes. Like,
yeah.
never, I try not to say never. I cannot think of a time in my life where the longer I put something off, the more comfortable I felt doing it. Like, I cannot, as a human who's been on this earth for 28 years, think of one example. So, like, I don't know. I just don't buy that that's how it works. And so,
Oh,
I guess that makes me think about, like, we're talking about all of these barriers, all of these things that are difficult and are hard. And, like, I imagine in the moment, it can be easier to be like, that's hard. I don't want to do that. Or like, this feels difficult. I'm just going to do this
it's a
instead.
future self problem.
Yeah. So, like, what keeps you on track taking care of yourself? What keeps you committed to like doing yoga, to doing those things that you need to do?
I think it's the idea that it's like the 1 week that you don't do it.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden you're like, why am I super angry? Like, why am I frustrated? Why is it that everything like ticks me off way easier? And I think it's just that realization that you like have to keep on continually doing it, knowing that you're going to go in the exact same spot as it was before. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and getting into those habits in the first place is awful. Like, I remember I'm not flexible. I'm still not flexible. I can't even touch my toes. Like I wanted to be a dancer. I was in like dance. I'm like, I'm a good dancer, but I just can't. I just remember my teacher being like, good luck. Like she was like, you have all the skills, you have like all the like stage presence, but she's like, you are not flexible. And I remember
Oh.
like the first time trying yoga and I was like, this is so dumb. Like, and it took a month of me hating it and hating it and hating it until finally I was like, just shut up and do it. And now it's like if you it's like the same idea of like having a smoke in the morning. I don't smoke. Maybe that's a weird thing, but like going out like making a coffee every single morning becomes like habitual and it's like one of those like moments. And the same thing like every single morning I wake up in the morning and I watch like RuPaul Drag Race and I knit for an hour. And I've made that now part of my schedule that it's like time just to be able to have for myself
Mm-hmm.
and not be around. Like Todd is a night owl anyways, so he's never going to wake up at the same time. He'd be so angry if he did. But it's just like having that moment and having that time to be able to do stuff for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, it sounds like making it part of the routine is just easier because it's a habit. You don't have to think about doing it. You don't have to get back into building the habit. Like that's, I know for me too, the
yeah,
worst, a lot of yoga also. So it feels a little different. But like if I ever try and go to the gym, the first like 3 days are the most miserable days of my life. And that
oh,
maybe
it's
that's
awful.
like drastic, but like I just hate it.
Oh
And
dude, it's awful. And
yeah.
then
And
you
so
feel like your body feels like
yeah.
got smashed by a
Mhm.
truck and you're like, dibs, I do not want to do this.
Yeah. And so sometimes like the only thing that keeps me going on the day when I'm like, oh, I don't feel like going is like, I do not want to go back through that again. Like just go. Cause
It's awful.
if you don't want to go for one day, that's going to be easier than trying to start over and
Yeah.
build it again. I also like the idea, and it reminds me, I think it's come up with most people that like you don't realize how important it is until you were to stop doing it. And like, I don't know. I imagine it's the same as like people do that with their medication, right? They're like,
Oh
oh my,
yeah.
good. I don't have to take this anymore. And it's like, no,
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 we do.
no. Your numbers were good because you were taking it.
Yeah.
Don't stop doing that. And it's really like, it's not a luxury to do these things and make that time for yourself. It's part of what you have to do to
Yeah.
function, to get through.
And I think it's like, I think it's just like also taking the time to be like, I'm going to set aside this time to be able to do XYZ.
Mm-hmm. I know too, speaking of setting aside time, I don't know, Birdie had a question and said, how do you balance your full-time job and Knititude? If it were me, I would never be able to focus on my job and just want to do stuff for knitting.
Same ideas. Like you walk in the door, you walk into it, you come out, you close the door. I would like to say that I do that with Knitatude, but I don't. But I do. It's like I set tasks. Like I'm a very like task oriented person. Like I love lists. So I will set out my whole entire like what I end up having to get done, and then I break it down. I'll actually show you. It's my favorite thing. It's like my favorite.
Love lists. I don't know if you know, I feel like I don't talk about these things. Like I'm a super planner, color coded pen. So I'm like,
yeah. I like, this is like my holy grail. Like everything is like broken down by like colors of release dates. That's when like pattern testers have to come in. I have lists of everything. I like, so when it comes to Knititude with having a full-time job, it's hard to like want to always do the knit stuff, but I also have to realize that I have to say no to certain things, whether that's no in my job, because I'm like that's going to be way too many overtime hours. I need to be able to work on Knititude, or like in Knititude being like, no, you can't just like, and it's way harder, especially now that I'm working from home, where it's like, oh, I can just like peep into an email. But I think it's like also setting aside those hours. Like, again, I wake up in the morning and I knit, and that's like my time. And even though it is relaxing, I'm still getting those things done. And then I have it like set up for like Saturdays are like my computer days. So I go and I smash out a bunch of computer stuff, social media, which is what my challenge is about. I really, really try to like, I'm terrible at it. And this is why it's the challenge for this week. I try to like actually limit my time on social media, because I always have this idea where I'm always like, I'm doing it for Knititude. And then I'm like, you just lost 45 minutes of just like doom scrolling and like looking into it. And I have to remind myself, okay, being like, my post is going to go up in the morning. I'm literally going to put up my post while I'm peeing. And then from there, that's like the start of my day. I don't have to worry. If I want to pop into like social media, I'll do it. But I think, yeah, it's just like setting out those times to be able to do work stuff, and then also to be able to do work stuff, which is like my 9 to 5.
Have you ever, you can plead the fifth on this, would you ever do Knititude full time? Like, would you ever leave?
I remember getting that question like maybe 3 years ago, and I actually did a podcast on it with one of my girlfriends, and I was like, no, I'm never going to do it full time. I was like, no, like no possible way. But I think that's slightly changed just because of the monetary amount, like with how much Knititude is now pulling in. Like when I started Knititude, it was just like this wee little babe that I was like, oh, it'll be fun. Like, I'll just like knit things and I'll sell them. But now that it's like grown more and more and more, and like taken over like the amount of money that my full-time job has, I'm like, that would actually be a possibility for me to be able to do. That's an actual reality. Maybe down the road, I always have this like stupid idea where I'm like, oh my God, when I have a baby, because at some point Todd and I will have kids, it's like 5 years down the road. But I'm like, oh my God, that'll be the year that I take Knititude full time. And like every single person is like, that's not how that works. Like, that's not how that works.
No, that doesn't work either. I was going to say, if you take it full time when you're pregnant, then will it just go once the baby comes? But I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, I have no idea. But then it's also like, I really like my job. I was in like, I went into broadcasting. So everyone's like, oh, you're so good at talking to people. And I'm like, yeah, it's because I went to school for it. Like, learn how to talk into a microphone. That was literally my fucking course. It was like, if you're going to go into a radio show, make sure that you only drink like water between this temperature and this temperature so you don't ruin your vocal cords. Like, that is legit. Like, make sure if you're going into a radio show that you wear like layers because there may be a draft in the boot. Like, this is like the stupidity that I ended up taking for school. I have no idea where I was going with the story. Oh, full-time. No, I really like my job. I like went into like advertising sales. Like I went into TV. I was like, I'm going to be a much VJ host. Like, it's going to be so cool. I can't wait.
What?
A VJ? Oh, do you guys not have much music?
No.
MTV?
Like VJs. We have MTV. Yeah.
Yeah. So like an MTV host, like, but much is like the Canadian version. You'd move to
Okay.
Toronto, you'd like get some like edgy kind of haircut. Who fucking knows? I was just like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be Oprah. And and I realized that I couldn't be Oprah, and that was an unrealistic dream. And then I just got into TV and I started like writing. And then I went into advertising because I was like, that's where the money is. And then I was like a spots and dots person for 8 years. And then
What?
so like so the backstory of Chantal is like I went to school for broadcasting, so I took radio and television.
Uh-huh.
I moved to Vancouver for a year. I worked on set for about 8 months, and that is the only time I've ever had panic attacks.
What did you do on set?
So I was a PA, so a personal assistant. So I was like lowest bottom, like I was the runner. I like went and got coffee. I had to drive people around. I had just moved to Vancouver, and Vancouver is like, so if you live in Calgary, which is where I was born and raised, everything is like you have Center Street, and everything goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then everything goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like I'm just so accustomed to like numbers, and I had to drive people around in Vancouver, and like there are one ways in downtown, and everything is like turn left on Alberta Street. I'm like, where the fuck is Alberta Street? Like I have no idea what this is. But I got to be on set. I got to like meet some pretty cool people, and got to like work with like Ashley Tisdale, and just like silly. She's awful. She's a bitch.
Oh.
And like I've worked with Catherine Zeta-Jones. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just name dropping because I feel super fancy. But yeah, I was in Vancouver for about a year. I was on set for about 8 months, and then I was an extras talent agent. So in other words, like everyone who's in like the background, I hired them and put them on set. Came back to Calgary because I was broke, and we wanted to get married, and ended up going into like a morning show, like a breakfast television. I started working for a morning show, and I just wrote the entertainment section. And then I moved up and I went into the advertising sales section, and I was an account coordinator, which essentially is just like the sales would always like be like, oh, do you want to advertise on like City TV or whatever? It was City TV at the time. And then I would like place all their commercials.
Okay.
And I did that for probably about 8 years. And then I just moved into an agency. So I work for an advertising agency now. I'm a copywriter. So I went from like spots and dots to like being creative and like having to write. So I write ads. I'm like that person that's like, you need to buy a phone. You need to buy a phone. Like that's legit my like 9 to 5 job. So I don't know. Backstory, I don't know if I would like, I feel like maybe I would go full time with Knitatude, but also like I love my job. Like my team members are the tits. Like they're so wonderful.
That's cool to like have a space. I mean, that's a tough decision to be in, but like that's cool to have a space where you really like what you're doing on both ends. And the other part of me is like, who the hell knows what's going to happen with the world? And like, are we ever going to go back to because I
don't think so.
I don't think we're going to go back to the office in the way that we did, especially for jobs, I don't know, like yours. If it's like, you don't have to be face to face. If you can do things remote and companies can like save space like and money on an office, then like, I don't think back. And then like, does that change things? Like, could you do things?
Could you live in a completely different place and still go remote? And like, dude, I want to move to Victoria so bad. And I'm like, maybe I could do it.
Are you sure you don't want to come move to PA? Is that what you meant? You want to move to Pennsylvania?
I'm not going to lie. The state scares the absolute shit out of me right now. So I'm going to stay in Canada for a while.
I think we're going to try and come to Canada as soon as we can.
Come to me. We're pretty wonderful. I was talking to Chiwe last week, and she was like, wait, are you saying that the whole entire population of Canada is the same population as California? And I was like, it is. She's like, that makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, like half of Canada is like ice.
The Arctic and freezing, and no one wants to go there. Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
But like also the rest of Canada is just cool. And it's like you can touch, like you put your arms out of your house and like you don't hit the next house next to you. Like that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very true.
Maybe
that's another thing for self-care. Get a job that you actually like.
Oh.
And not being around, like, I think my biggest issue with like the last place that I just didn't want to help the people that I worked with. Where I was like, I'm good at my job, but I really don't like you guys. And like my mental health completely has changed since like going to a team that, I don't know, gave me a spot bonus. I'm like, you suckers. Like, you think I'm good enough to get a spot bonus? Like, you guys like me enough that you gave me a shout out and money? Like, you guys are suckers. How did that happen? Like, I've never been at a job where people are like, you're great, we'll give you a raise. I'm like,
okay. It's also, it's so funny though too to be like, oh yeah, maybe like try and get a job that you like. Oh yeah, like the amount of time I sit with friends, with clients who are like, I'm miserable in grad school, and I'm like, well, why are you in grad school? And like, wait,
I think it's because we're so like ingrained to this like, everyone has to go to school, they have to get married, they have to get a white picket fence, they have to have like the nuclear family of having 2 kids and a dog. Like, I think we just like have this instilled in our brains where we have to do this. And I think it's starting to change. I personally do. Like, I think like that's starting to get bucked, but it's really hard. Like, I got married in 2013. So like, and people immediately are like, when are you having babies? And I'm like, maybe the answer is never. And how about don't you fucking ask me? Like, like, it's just, I think it's becoming more acceptable to be able to say things like that. But I think it's like definitely like bucking status quo, and just the idea of like having a job that you like. That's, and I don't know, maybe it's because I've only been there for a year and a half and I'm still like honeymoon phase with like my work, but like, I don't know.
No, I feel the same way. Like, it's funny because like, I'm a doctor of psychology. I could have a private practice and make a lot of money, like boatloads of money. And like, I'm at a college, not only am I at a college, I'm at a private college, which basically pays us very, very little money. Like, if you're a public university, at least they have to pay you a decent amount of money.
Okay.
So maybe making way less than half of what I could be making, but I love it. Like, every day, I love the people I go to work with. I was here for postdoc. I tried to be here for internship. I didn't match. I applied again for postdoc, matched, loved it, applied for a staff position, stayed on. And like, now it sucks because we're home and not with each other. And we're like the kind of office that's just like, you walk down the hall and you pop into each other's office and you talk. So I miss that. But it's so funny. I think you're right. I think it's changing. Even like, I went to the dentist a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh, they were like, oh, your sweater's so pretty. I don't remember what I was wearing. And I was like, oh, I made it. And they were like, oh my gosh, what? And so I talked about knitting, and they're like, that's so cool. How do you get the different colors? It had to be a colorwork sweater. And I was like, oh, well, like, you just hold the
different stitches. Yeah.
Like, yeah. It's like, oh, and I dyed the yarn. And they were like, wait, what? So, this is what it comes like. And then you do this, and then it looks like this. And my dentist was like, who I've known my whole life. My dad's known him for years and years. And he was like, oh, are you going to do that full time? And I was like, just the fact that he like asked me if I was going to stop being a doctor and like dye yarn full time, and with zero judgment, and was just like, so cool. And I was like, oh,
that's nice.
That's kind of cool. That like,
you didn't like pass judgment that I wanted to be in the arts. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. And like, I think it's cool. The more and more people I see who are doing it and breaking the mold, like Allie was in the same boat, like got her doctorate and then was like, I'm just going to take Explore Knits full time because I can. And like, I'll probably make as much money as I would otherwise. But even if I don't, if I make enough to get by and I'm happy, isn't that
enough?
Yeah. So all of that to say, I'm now dying to hear, since you posted, was it yesterday, that you were like, I already know what my challenge is going to
Oh, I
be. And
do. I
I
feel like
told,
I
and
feel like we haven't chatted a lot about it because I have lots of feels about this too.
then, well, it took everything in my power. I was like, oh, I'm going to message her and ask what it is. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to do it because I like finding out when everyone else finds out and hearing about it. But now I'm dying and I need to know, what do you want the people to do this week?
So this week, this is again something that I struggle with. So I want people to set social media boundaries, and I want them to set boundaries with their phone.
Okay.
Because one of the biggest things that I've noticed, especially when it comes to my mental health, is that when we come into the comparison game and when we are constantly looking at numbers, we're looking at actual numbers on social media and we're comparing each other to like other people that we don't know. We're only seeing the highlights of stuff. I find that it can be really hard to like, one, get away from that and like take that step back. But I also think, especially with like, example, the politics that are happening right now, I think it's really, really easy to be able to doom scroll. And then all of a sudden you get yourself into this funk that you can't really get out of. So one of the things that I would suggest is my heart, like if you want to do this hard, your phone goes out of your hands at 9 p.m. and it doesn't go in your room.
Okay.
That's like the hard, like if you want to like go at this hard, it's your phone. You do not go on it after 9 p.m. You either put it downstairs, you put it in the kitchen, whatever it is, and you don't touch that until the next morning. And if you say that you have to use it for an alarm, that's such bullshit because there are such things as alarm clocks. um like that's the biggest one. And I think also because of that is because I think my looping into that is I think that we don't get enough sleep as like our own generation right now, and we're talking about like blue light like really affecting people from sleeping. And if you can find that where you put it away for at 9 p.m., you're not looking at your screen, you're not constantly thinking about other things, and you're not like just going on social media for shits and giggles and spending about an hour and a half, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, when like how did 2 hours go by? It's now 11. I have to still wake up in the next morning. But yeah, otherwise, like setting boundaries on your phone, like take a look at your, if you have an iPhone, swipe to the left and see what your what your hours are. It's mine are like 5. Like
I wonder, Samsung must have it. I'll have to look and play around and see. Or if you're watching this and you know if Samsung or any Androids have one, let us know.
yeah,
It
and
must.
and see if you can lower your, so like your average time. See if you can lower it for next week.
I love that. That sounds so immediately, like the part of me that's like, but I have to run my business and I have to scroll and I have to like everything and the algorithms and people aren't going to see my stuff. And like,
It's
LOL.
9 p.m. You shouldn't be answering work emails at that point, which I know I'm in the exact same point.
No, but you're right. And also, like, this feels so timely. So I'm one of the people that's like, not really religious. I was like raised Catholic. I'm not really religious, but I do believe that, like, I don't know. I believe in like the universe. That sounds funny. Like, I think that things happen for reasons. Not like, oh, everything happens for a reason, but
No,
like things are coincidental. And when they happen and I see connections, and I'm like, oh, that's really funny. I wonder what it is, especially about this time of year. Or like, I found myself this week, the past 3 nights, going to bed like 2 hours later than I normally do, and bringing my phone not only into my room, but like,
into
oh,
your bed.
finish checking my stories in bed. And I'm so not normally like that.
It's actually really bad.
No,
You're like supposed to associate your bed with like sleeping and sex, and that's it. And every time that you bring a screen into it, you're like, no, I'll just do something else. And then people are like, why can't I sleep? You're like, because your brain has associated other things with it. It's like Pavlov's dog.
100%. And like, I know this. I teach people this. Like, oh, I don't sleep well. And I'm like, no, Brie, you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing. Like, this is foundation. Like, you need to eat 3 meals a day. You need to sleep eight and a half for me hours a night. Like, you know how this works. Just stop doing it. And it's I don't know. I was trying to think about like, I know working in a counseling center, a lot of times we feed off of like the ebbs and flows of the school year that students feed off of. So like it's finals happening next week. And so our
Stress.
students are really like, yeah, like through the roof. Michael's like up writing papers every night because he's a procrastinator and it's like, oh, I have to write a 10-page paper tonight. And so I feel like I'm feeding off all of that anxiety. And then I'm like, okay, I need to shut my brain down. Going on Instagram is not going to help me do that. So this is going to be a hard challenge for me this week and super, super needed challenge this week. And I'm also curious too, because you say like it's something you struggle with. Do you have, and maybe this comes from Todd, or maybe this comes from wherever you pick this up, like if folks are struggling with that, what they can do or how they can try and still work toward it, even though they're not getting it or it's not easy for them to do?
The thing that Todd always says to me, whenever I get like really upset. So like, I have people send me stupid things all the time that are just like, you didn't need to take that out on me. I'm not the reason that you're angry, but whatever. He always says, you shouldn't be letting an app control your life. And I have to remind myself of that all the time. And I think that it just comes to also like, if you are struggling with this, there's a reason why you're struggling with this. Again, working in advertising, my job is to make you stay on your screen for longer. Okay, I'm going to go into a mini rant. So if you guys haven't watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, it is really good. And it talks about essentially how social media and the apps and the makers of the apps are specifically trying to keep you on the screen longer to be able to then be able to serve you ads. And that's how they end up making money. So when it comes to social media, if you are finding that you are addicted to it, it's because it's meant to be addictive. And it's actually, you having to break that is really freaking hard. And I think the main thing is that if you can think to yourself this week, I'm going to break it. And like, you have to have that like backbone to be like, I'm going to break it. Like, these apps do not control me. They do not control my emotions. Like, I am like, there's certain things that I find that I go towards to be able to get angry. Like, whenever I want to feel really angry, I just go to the Lion Brand Facebook page, because like, God, people are dumb. But like, I just go, God, you're so stupid. But that's also not good for my mental health. But I think it's just like reminding yourself that you are trying to take a little bit more of your time back. And I think especially during COVID, it's very hard to sit down and think and just be with yourself without a screen, and know that it is going to be uncomfortable and you are going to be bored to shit. But instead of grabbing your phone, grab a book.
I like that, because I think too, and I've talked about it a little bit in some of the other videos, like touched on it here and there, that like a softer version than this challenge, right? It's usually like make space for something. And I like this idea of like, all right, we're in week 5. Let's go. Let's do it. Like, pedal to the metal. Let's see what we can do. If you can't do it, like, recognize maybe, well, what's going on that like I'm struggling so hard to do this right now. Part of this is certainly because this thing, its job is to keep me hooked in.
Yeah.
And like, what's making me not be able to break that today, when maybe I was able to do it yesterday or last week and now it feels different. But I like the idea too of what you're saying of like, it's really hard to just stop doing something.
You're not going to stop.
Yeah. It's way easier to do something else.
A little less.
See if this something else is more meaningful and like engaging to you. So like, I feel like all of us are like, oh, I have this thing I've been wanting to do for so long, or like, I wish I just want to finish this project, or like whatever. And really making a point to not just be like, oh, I'm going to get off my phone because I don't want to do that. But like, if I had 20 minutes to do something else that was so much more meaningful to me, like, wow, that would be awesome. Well, you do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. Like go for a walk, decide to make some cookies that don't come from a recipe online. Also, one of the biggest things that I have when it comes to social media, one of the easiest things that you can do is, well, there's two. One, take that app and put it on the last page of your phone. So you have to scroll through and make that like cognitive moment of, I need to scroll through 3 pages to be able to get to it. And then the other one, which is really annoying, is close out of your app every single time that you like turn off your thing. Don't just turn off your thing, because then it automatically reloads. You're already in there. You've lost those 20 minutes. You were literally going to go check the time, and then you then looked at your like app because it was already there.
It's funny that you say those because I do both of those things, not necessarily because I put any conscious thought into it, but this is like really funny. But when I got my new phone, oh, it's now me and Michael. My background screen used to be Rocco, and I like wanted to see his face. So I only wanted
You moved
two
everything over.
of like apps on one page. So I put my Instagram on the third one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because there's so many times I get a text or something and I don't even see Instagram. Like I don't see it. So I don't open it. And like, it's like, oh, I have to scroll and do it. And sometimes when my phone is already to that page, it's like, oh, I have a notification. Let me just click it. And then I'm like,
and turn your notifications off. It is so stressful to do it. But honestly, if people are going to be trying to get a hold of you, and this is what I have to tell myself for like having a business, if people want to get a hold of me, they'll send me an email.
that's true. And like, to be honest, there is no business that I am supporting, whether it's small or big, that I can contact them 24/7 and immediately. I guess maybe if they have like a call center, if it's not Amazon, there's no business I can call 24/7 and immediately talk to not only a person,
The
but the
owner.
owner. Like, no, that's if I go to my nail salon, I couldn't even talk to the owner immediately on the phone when they were open, never mind like at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So I like that.
So there's like different ways to do like social media boundaries, but that's the biggest one that I find. And I think again, because of COVID, we're like constantly relying on our social media to be able to get that like engagement, but it's not truly super fulfilling like engagement.
Yeah.
And it's
And
hard.
I like that too, though, like recognizing which part of it feels fulfilling. Like, I know
Yeah.
there are parts of my Instagram that do feel fulfilling, like the chats that I have with the people that I actually connect with, or like Vlogmas is, I don't know, it's just making me happy this year. But like, that's mostly on YouTube. I don't actually need to see on Instagram when someone's posted something. I'll just check my YouTube when I want to watch it. So I like that idea too of like, even when you are spending time on it, recognize like, are you on it in a meaningful way? Or are you just like, sometimes I click through stories. I don't know. I feel bad if I don't watch people's stories. So sometimes I just like do this and I don't even watch
Just
it.
swiping.
And Michael's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to swipe on them. Like, I feel like it's going to hurt their, I don't know, presence on my page. And I like them. I just like, don't want to do it. And like, I'm like, oh my God, you know how much time I probably waste doing that?
I think it's also like setting up like a social media time where it's like have something on it, like if you have like a timer on your watch or whatever, but you're like, hey, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on social media, and then just watch how fast those go.
Yeah. Love all these ideas. I'm also really excited. So I'll try and capture these as best as I can in a post and I'll post them on my page. And I'm excited to hear too which parts of this, like you're giving us so many suggestions, which parts of it
Work
people
best.
used, yeah, like which they found that were more helpful. Maybe there were some that they tried and like really didn't work for them, but I'm excited just to hear what this kind of experiment looks like. Sometimes I like to, when I talk to people, like just treat it as an experiment. Like researchers don't judge their specimens, they don't judge the survey results. They just look at it and like take all of it as data to make a decision for next time. So like treat this week as your experiment about social media. See what it looks like, how it works, see what doesn't. And then you can make decisions after this about what you want that to look like moving forward.
Yeah, because it's different for everyone. Like everyone has like a different comfort level. 9 p.m. makes my inside squirm.
That sounds really early. I'm like, oh my God, it's 8:20. I still need to I still need to open Erin's Advent and I need to put on my Vlogmas.
I know it's not easy. Let's say 9:30. I don't know. It's just like the time where you're like at least an hour before you go to bed.
I like that. I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that tonight.
Good luck. It sucks.
Try. It'll be fine. That's okay. It'll be good. I'm gonna have to get Michael to do it too, because he does it also in bed a lot. I'm gonna have to be like, stop doing that.
Todd hates my phone. He's like, if there's one, he's like, that's like one of our pain points in our relationship. He's like, it's the fact that I am jealous of your phone.
Really?
Yeah. He's like, if I could throw your phone into a river, I'd hands down do it. He's like, I would take it right now. He's like, I hate it. It's like that. He's like, and I think it's because he's like jealous of the time that I give it. Like we also said we started, oh man, this is so nerdy, but we do Wednesday. So it's Wednesday, which is Wednesday date night. We call it WWPP, which is Wine Wednesday, WWPPP, sorry, Wine Wednesday, Podcast, Piano, and Port.
Oh.
So we have every single Wednesday where we try and listen to a podcast. We stay away from screens. Todd got a piano and I sing. So we have been learning like multiple songs. So we will like play together and then we will have port with like a little glass of port and like a little like chocolate every single Wednesday. But then he throws in other P's, like maybe it's like pub night one night. He also likes to say pussy, but I'm like, you fucking wish. And then like sometimes it's pot night. Like it's just like whatever we can find that have W's and P's. That's all.
A lot of good things with P's, even like pajamas. Like that's This is exciting. I like these things. I like this. This is gonna give me a lot of ideas because Michael and I just decided for the month of October, we did like Brighttober, whatever it's called. He made me watch a scary movie every night and it was terrible. And I cried like almost every night and I didn't sleep for like a month. And so my revenge was like, well, it's December. We have to watch a Christmas movie every night. And he's like, he's fine. He's like, oh, we'll watch like Krampus. And I'm like, no.
You're like, we're watching The Holiday, The Christmas Drop, The Princess Swap, like all of those things. You're like, oh, we're not even watching the classics. We're watching like the shitty Hallmark ones.
I told him I like have all these like rom-com family dramedies. And I was like, Michael, at least it's not Hallmark and Lifetime movies. At least these were actually in the movies. So like you can't even complain about it. But that's exciting because then I can watch my movies without our phones. And he can do it. I think the only reason he doesn't hate my phone is because he plays video games on his phone. So he's on his phone probably.
Oh, yeah. See, Todd is like hates social media as well. And also hates advertising. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, love. Like, we're so opposite.
That's but it's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
Which means you got things.
I got things to do.
I'm gonna go open Erin's Advent. I'm gonna go choose our movie and put my phone away.
It just makes you choke. You're like, it's awful. And it's not, that's like, you don't have to do that. Whichever feel it makes you like, makes the most sense to you. That's the other thing.
I'm going to do it. Maybe I'll put my phone away for social media and see how that goes. Like my family calls me at night and things like that.
Oh yeah. If it's like calls and like I say fine for calls and text messages, but it's the same thing. Like put it away from you because otherwise you will try and grab those.
Yeah. Cool. I'm going to try it.
Good luck.
I'm excited.
Good luck to everyone. It's a good one. It's really, really helpful.
May the odds be ever in our favor because we will need it.
It is so helpful though. Like I know that like I keep on like saying that it's impossible, but it's not impossible and it will make you feel better about yourself in the long run.
Yeah. even though it doesn't feel good, which is like totally what we talked about tonight. So
you will feel better next week when your eyes aren't just like so glued to a screen.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect challenge.
Sweet.
Cool. Any last words? This was so much fun, obviously, talking and hanging out with you. Any last words for the people before we go and do our self-care things?
Take it easy on yourself. It's Christmas. We have COVID. We have so many other ways of doing Christmas this year. You may not be able to do Christmas, and just like expect the normal to not be normal. And it's okay to be able to feel sad about that. It's okay to be able to like feel the feels or be angry or frustrated. But just know that like it's only 1 year. Mm-hmm. And smile. You look fucking beautiful.
Great advice. Well, I don't think there's anything else to be said there.
Magical.
Thanks for coming. This was so much fun.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And hopefully, I'm going to have folks tag me. I'm sure folks will tag you, and we'll hear about all the amazing people who are able to stay out there.
You can do it. You can do it. I believe in you.
We need like a support group for like some sort of hashtag. Oh no, we can't use that. I was going to say some sort of hashtag for when you're about.
You can, but it's just like you're putting those social media boundaries. It doesn't mean that you can't be on social media. It's just putting boundaries.
But I was going to say you have to use a hashtag when you're about to break, but then it's too late.
Then we realize that people are using the hashtag too often. We're like, no, backfired. Shit.
Alrighty, go have a good night. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for coming on. Folks, keep an eye on my Instagram at The Little Wolf Knits. If you don't already follow me, where I'll post Chantal's challenge. And it's December, so I need to pick a winner for
last month.
If you're watching these videos, definitely make sure you're posting. Definitely make sure you're using the hashtag self-care collaborative 2020.
Is it just on any of your makes, or like while you're doing it, or
anything that is involved in self-care, whether it's something knitting or making or sewing or creating or baking, or whether it's something that you're like, oh, it's the morning and I didn't post anything last night because I did the challenge, so I'm going to use the hashtag. Literally the easiest, I don't want to say the easiest because some of these things are not easy. The simplest Cal, Mal, make along to get involved in, and there are going to be some cool prizes. It's going to be fun. Sure. So if you're not already playing along, definitely start doing that. A lot of people are, but if you're not, don't miss out.
Get on it.
Cool. Yeah. Cool kids are doing it, so you should do it.
Okay. I will chat with you soon.